Hello everyone, Michael Brady here from Brady Musical Instruments. I've got a really exciting brand new ocarina style that I've been hinting towards in past videos and something that I've been discussing with several members of the community for a little while now. But I'm pleased to finally have a chance to reveal this brand new ocarina offering for 2026. So without further ado, I'd like to give a first look and listen to batch number 20 of wooden ocarinas from Brady Musical Instruments and the very first batch of pendants. So over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the background of this development, how the pendants really evolved, taking a look at each of the ocarinas, diving into each of the woods, the tone and response, give some sound samples of each ocarina, discuss some of the features of the ocarinas, and then give a full song demo at the end. So, like many of my developments, this development really came out through communicating and just talking with members of the community. I think as an instrument maker, it's very important to have an open and honest dialogue with members of the community and people who play your instruments or would be playing your instruments, not only so that I stay informed in what people like, what people don't like about certain ocarinas, what features they want to see, but kind of just to see what's out there, what people enjoy, and kind of making a connection with players, because I think at the end of the day, instruments is a two-way dialogue between the maker and the player. So I was discussing, typical ocarina stuff with the global ocarina community Discord. So it was one of the general chats, just having a conversation about ocarinas, and it's a really fantastic group, really great group of really knowledgeable players. Everyone's super nice, super supportive. And it's a nice little community to be a part of. And from our discussions, the topic of pendants came up. So everyone was, talking about their pendants, some of their favorite makers, showing their collections. And it got me thinking, maybe I should look at pendants. Seems like there's a lot of ocarinas that have them, and they're a nice, small, compact size, so there's something kind of interesting about them. So discussing it more with people, I started to gauge, what pendants people liked, some of the features they liked, some of the features they don't like, some things that they want to see in pendants, some of their favorite makers, and seeing their collections and everything. And I realized that with the ocarina field, it's very open, very diverse. There's no one perfect instrument for everyone. But I think across the board, it seems like regardless of what style of ocarina you like, whether it's single chamber, double chamber, harmonies, or large bass or small sopranos out of clay, wood, or whatever, there's a special place for pendants with most people, and it seems like most ocarinas have at least one pendant in their collection. Many ocarinas have large collections of pendants themselves, just because they're very small, they're compact, they're relatively lower cost, and there's just this nice quality about having this ocarina you can just carry around with you, wearing it as a functional piece of jewelry. So I started to look into my own pendant designs. I was looking at a whole bunch of different styles and options and discussing with people, what features they like and what I might want to incorporate. And I settled on a design inspired by my inline work and decided to go from there. So this particular batch consists of 6 ocarinas. So there's serial numbers 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, and 56. So I'm going to dive into some of the general features with these inlines, and then I'm going to start getting into the specifics of each of these ocarinas of this batch. So to start, for my pendant ocarinas, the first thing is the style. So these are, I would say, 6-hole plus 1, so 7-hole pendants, in the sense that they have this standard 6-hole pendant fingering that you're going to see for most 6-hole pendants. So there's 4 main holes in the front and then 2 holes in the back. So again, very standard cross fingering for typical 6-hole pendants. And then there's the 7th hole next to the right pointer finger side. So on the second hole up, you can slide over and cover that sub hole for dropping down a semitone below the fundamental. So this gives my pendants a total range of 18 notes. So this is a little bit more than the average pendant that you'll find. There's a range of pendants anywhere from 1 octave to 17 or 18 notes. And I would say that the 18-note range, especially for a wooden pendant, is very, very challenging for a number of reasons. For one thing, these are very small instruments, so the voicing hole has to be small. Because the voicing is small, that means the windway has to be small. And really small and tight windway means your tolerances are very, very crucial. In fact, to get the full 18-note range with these pendants, I have to keep to less than 0.05 millimeters, so 50 thousandths of a millimeter for the windway height and the labium alignment. So this is even tighter than my inlines. The inlines, especially as I go larger with the basses, they're more forgiving. The smaller altos, especially the G4 and the A4, tend to be a little bit more unforgiving. But the pendants are just another level of unforgiving. It's either they work across the whole range or they don't. So there's a lot of consideration that goes into getting the windway just right so that it plays brightly and sweetly without any raspiness or airiness, very clearly at the top range. And getting that last note is the big challenge. That's what makes these, I think, much more difficult than typical. Getting 1 octave, once you know how to voice them, is pretty easy to do for pretty much any style of ocarina. Getting 1 note above that is also pretty easy. And then when you have the subhole, it's still not too bad. But adding the subhole plus that final whole step above, so 2 whole steps above the octave, is where it starts to get really tricky. So the dimensions have to be insanely tight. Next, the wood selection for the mouthpiece has to be absolutely perfect. Because for this size, because the windway is so narrow, so tight, moisture effects can start to really affect how these play, especially at the high range, at the upper end. So if the mouthpiece isn't absorbing that moisture well enough, it's going to clog at that high range. So the grain has to be absolutely flawless on the inside of this. The surface has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect for everything to come together to get that full range. And it's actually because of how challenging it is to get the full range for this size ocarina. For now, I'm going to just stay with this size pendant as being the smallest pendant I make. I'm going to make a little bit bigger size as well, but this is the smallest size I'm going to do for now. However, with this one size, this one template, I can have multiple different keys. So this batch actually has 2 keys in it. There are several E5s and there are several F5s. However, I have several other keys of the size in other batches I'm working on now as well. And the only difference is just how deep the body is carved inside. Everything else about them is pretty much the same. Finally, for the last feature, as you would expect with a pendant, it's not a pendant if you can't wear it as a pendant. So each of the pendants have a hole for a neck strap. So I don't have it shown here, but each of these pendants will come with a nice black waxed cotton cord that's tied and adjustable to allow you to wear these. And the nice thing about wood is they're very light. So even though these aren't, as small as, some super tiny jewelry sized pendants that are out there, it's still a relatively small size for wearability as a pendant, and it's pretty light. So it's nice and portable in that regard. In comparison with the inlines, these are constructed exactly the same, just the body shape is different. So there's going to be a bottom wood, there's going to be a top wood, there's going to be laminations if I decide or if people want. Then the windway is made from separate pieces of either solid aromatic cedar or solid curly redwood. And that's again for moisture control and windway stability. These ocarinas would not function without that hyper-absorbent windway. And even with those woods, I have to be careful that the grain is perfectly straight and the grain is right. The proper orientation and everything, good quality grain, good quality wood, so I can maximize those moisture, the moisture absorption to make this really sing at those high notes clearly. These are also finished the exact same as my inlines. So the inside is brush coated with high-grade shellac. The mouthpiece is brush coated with high-grade shellac, so it's 100% food safe. You can stick it in your mouth. Technically, you can even eat shellac flakes. I don't recommend it because I've heard that they taste very bitter, but it's 100% food safe, 100% edible. And then the bodies are use the same exact penetrating, hardening oil varnish that I use for the larger ocarinas, the inlines. So these are very much an extension of the inline development. All the same manufacturing methods, all the same, material choices and finishes and everything that goes into them is the same. And so even though these are smaller ocarinas, they will be much cheaper than my inlines because they're smaller. And I can actually produce these in larger batches, but they receive the same exact treatment as my inline. So just because they are smaller doesn't mean they're any less quality instruments. They have one note less range, but that's just the physics of getting down to this size with the wood. It's really impossible, I think, to get that higher range. So these are really maximizing the range for the size and style and material, and staying with the same quality that I've used for the inline. So the wood selection, finish, everything that goes into it. And that's also something that I made the decision on for serializing these. So like my inlines, these are all stamped on the bottom with a serial number. And when I was working on this first batch, I was considering, should I continue the serialization from the inlines, or should I have my own separate serialization for the pendants? And I decided, because they're using the same exact materials and processes and quality and voicing that goes into these are not any less of an instrument than the inlines. So I wanted to have that continualization of the serial number, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a big bass or a tiny pendant. I want the quality and the style to really be reflective of what I've developed, and to be at the best level that I can offer for that stage of development. So now let's actually get into the inline. Or I'm going to make this mistake because I keep thinking inline. It's not inline. Let's get into the pendants. So this is the first pendant of the batch. This is number 51. So this ocarina consists of 4 woods. So the first wood is a nice, very lightly iridescent piece of lightly curly birch. This wood came from some earlier developments. Actually, some of my first transverse sweet potato development over a year and a half ago. When I started developing ocarinas, I had started with the transverse style. I found this wood for a really good deal from one of my suppliers, and I thought it'd be a nice wood to start development with. And then eventually down the road, I switched to inlines and kind of haven't looked back. But I had some of this left over, and I decided this would be the perfect size for pendants. So I made a number of pendants with this wood. And that's one of the nice things about the pendants is that they're very small. And a lot of times I have a lot of scrap wood or cutoffs that are too small for regular size inlines, but are perfect size for the inlines. So I kind of developed the inline size based off of what are kind of common dimensions of cutoffs that I have. And I've kind of tweaked it and modified it so that it fits nicely with my processes. And it's allowed me to really be much more resourceful for the wood. So I have a whole bunch of these smaller pieces of wood set aside from leftover from ocarinas or other builds, and I can finally actually turn even those small pieces of wood into fully functional instruments, which is a pretty cool thing. So this wood is actually left over from that first development. There were 2 of these ocarinas in this batch, and actually this batch originally consisted of 8 ocarinas. Through the course of voicing, I decided to completely reject 2 of the ocarinas. The voicing at the top end wasn't to the standard that I wanted. I wasn't happy with it, and I decided to let those ones go as opposed to pushing them out into the world. So there was a little bit of loss of this batch, but I think moving forward, as I refine the voicing and stuff and processes, I will hopefully have less loss. So one of the birches were lost, but this is one of the remaining birch ocarinas from this batch. So you can see the second wood here is bloodwood. So it's a nice bloodwood stripe that runs all the way across. So these ocarinas are a little bit smaller than the inlines. All my inlines are a total of 1.5 inches thick. My pendants are 1.25 inch thick. So the bodies are 1 inch thick. So I had to laminate the birch up just a little bit to get to that 1 inch. So it has a nice iridescent bloodwood stripe that runs around that complements kind of that nice light birch. Next, we have an olive wood top, and this was actually left over from a custom tenor E4 that I built, made from some koa for the bottom and some olive wood for the top. So I have a ton of olive wood left over from that build. So that was a really nice wood to tap into for these pendants. It takes a beautiful polish. It has a nice, interesting grain pattern. I thought it would pair kind of nicely with that birch. Finally, for the mouthpiece and for all the mouthpieces for these ocarinas in this batch, I have a standard aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So you can kind of see the mouthpiece is shaped. It has that little bit of a beak, like recorder style, also like my other inlines. There's a little bit of a taper at the top, so it's very comfortable to play, and just a very smooth feeling instrument to the mouth when you play it. So this particular ocarina is tuned to the key of E5. So again, this has a total of 18 notes. So the sub hole will drop it down to E flat 5, and this will go up to, let's see, E5, F sharp 5, and G sharp 5. So this has that full 18 note range, which gives you a lot of flexibility in what you can play. So now I'm going to give a sound sample of this ocarina going up and down the full scale and playing some improvisation on it. So this is what number 51 sounds like. So as a soprano pendant, this is going to have a nice, bright, beautiful bird-like chirpy tone. It has a nice clarity across the range, has good openness with a little bit of back pressure. The pendants do have a little bit of a different breath curve from the inlines. There is a little bit more breath. It's goes up a little bit, very minor, up the scale. On the final octave note, you push a little bit more, and then you go up a little bit more for the remaining notes. So it's a little bit of a different breath curve, but once you get used to it, it plays very easily. Sings really clearly at the top, very clearly at the bottom, and I've been finding playing these pendants more. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of they're just fun little instruments to play, and once you get the cross fingering down, it opens up some interesting possibilities. And makes certain genres of music actually a little bit easier to play. So these are definitely quite fun instruments, and I've come to again really enjoy pendants. When I was first starting this, I never gave them. I never paid attention to them. I never even considered making them, and I've got dozens more on the way. So next, we're going to be going into the second ocarina of this batch. So this is number 52. So this ocarina also consists of 4 woods. So the first wood of this one now, a stark contrast with the lighter birch. This is actually a beautiful piece of ribbon stripe aphromorgia. So this wood was actually left over from a shun build. I purchased some of this wood to make some shun, and I have one of my favorite shuns in my collection is actually made from this ribbon stripe aphromorgia. So it's a really beautiful wood. You can see that ribbon stripe iridescence running across with the grain. So a nice rich brown wood there. For the lamination for this one, I had to go up a little bit thicker, so there's a very, very thin bloodwood stripe that runs over the ribbon curl aphromorgia, and the bloodwood is nice because you get a little bit of that iridescence as well, so a nice rich brown, a nice red stripe. Then, like the prior ocarina, this also has an olive wood top and an aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So you can see a nice grain and color of the aromatic cedar, really nice striping of the olive wood. And I decided to orient the olive wood horizontally across both of these ocarinas. I thought it gave it a more interesting feel. There's this nice dark banding here, some nice striations across. So really nice striped ocarina if you like that type of feel. So these are actually kind of an interesting match set in that you have a lighter bottom with the olive and bloodwood, and then you have a darker bottom with the olive and bloodwood. Now this one is a little bit higher. This is the key of F5. So this will go all the way from E5 on the sub hole up to F6, G6, and then A6, I believe. So again, nice range. And for these ocarinas, I decided there's some variations in the tuning just because I was working through the voicing, and some of them felt like they played better a little bit lower. Some of them felt like they played better a little bit higher. So I just adjusted the ocarina to match where it wanted to go, because sometimes you just can't force an instrument to play how you want. You just got to let it sing and adjust accordingly. So this is a little bit higher pitch. This is an F5. So I'm going to go up and down the scale of this ocarina. So this is what number 52 sounds like. So again, beautiful clarity across the range. You don't have to push it too hard, and that's the one thing I've kind of tried to keep with these ocarinas, like the inlines, is have a little bit lower breath pressure, so you're not forcing it, you're not playing it too hard. Even though these are a little bit higher pitched ocarinas, soprano ocarinas, they don't hurt to hurt your ears to play. I know that some really high pitched ocarinas, some sopranos, even some pendants, especially out of clay and plastic, they can be beautifully voiced, they can be beautifully clear, but they can be very high pitched and shrill almost. The nice thing about wood is the wood really helps mellow out the tone. So this can actually be played pretty comfortably indoors. These are not screaming loud ocarinas. That's another thing I like about the lower breath pressure. So these are kind of mid-lower breath pressure ocarinas. You don't have to push them too hard. They're not too loud. They're nice and mellow at the top end, so your ears aren't hurting after playing at the high end. And they have a nice clarity to the top. The third ocarina of this set is number 53. So this is a pretty unique one. So this one consists of 3 woods. So this first wood is a really beautiful piece of curly mango. And this wood was left over from a custom curly mango base B3 shun that I had made for a customer quite a while ago. It was an absolutely gorgeous shun, just rich, booming. The iridescence of the mango, the colors in the mango is absolutely beautiful. And you can actually get a little bit of the taste, no pun intended, of the mango wood here. So there's a nice mottled golden tan brown to it. Mango can have a wide variety of colors. So there's a little bit of lime green in this, along with the tans and the browns and everything. So a really nice, beautiful fruit wood for instrument making. Next, for the top, I decided to pair kind of that exotic mango with a nice piece of striped zebra wood. So zebra wood I found is a pretty popular wood with people. I just finished a super custom Alto G4 with zebra wood and African blackwood, which is a stunning one. I made a number of tenors and altos last year, inlines, with a beautiful Brazilian bloodwood bottom and zebra wood top. And this zebra wood is actually left over from that bloodwood zebra wood set. So it has really nice, nice rich banding, really contrasting, very unique pairing, I think, with the mango. So I think mango and zebra wood makes for a very interesting kind of exotic combination. Finally, you have that aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So everything, again, all these woods, everything is taken a really beautiful polish. And this particular batch is very unique in that each ocarina is different. Typically when I do batches, and batches of these now moving forward is going to be more similar style woods. But for this first one, I decided to take, whatever leftovers I had and make a whole bunch of different ocarinas from them, exploring a bunch of different wood combinations. So this ocarina, number 53, is tuned to the key of E5. So this is the same tuning as the first ocarina, so number 51. So to give a sound sample of this ocarina, this is what 53 sounds like. So, again, another really fun ocarina. All these have a very similar breath curve, very similar tone and response. So, they all sound beautiful across the range. I can't really tell that much of a difference between playing them. There's a little bit of difference in the warmth. Some of them are a little bit warmer, some of them are a little bit crisper, but they all have the same clarity. So, another fun one to play. Moving on to the second half of this batch, this is number 54. So this is another 4-wood ocarina. So starting out, we have a really stunning piece of curly eucalyptus. Now this curly eucalyptus was one of the specialty boards that I had set aside for some really high end transverse ocarinas. I bought this wood really when I had started, a little bit after I just started making ocarinas over a year and a half ago. And I had this set aside for when I had worked out those ocarinas, to launch into some really nice ones. This is too thin for my inlines, but I did actually make a shun with this wood. So really beautiful, just stunning iridescence in that grain. Just, I think, one of the more figured ones of this batch. Really hard wood, really heavy wood. This is probably one of the heaviest ocarinas of the set. Again, not a super heavy ocarina, but compared to some of the lighter ones, like the birch one, for example, this is a nice bit of heft to it. So really beautiful, rippling golden eucalyptus. And if you like this wood and you happen to not grab this particular ocarina from this batch, I've got a whole bunch of really exquisite eucalyptus-based pendants in the works already. I really love this wood, and I'm excited to make a lot more pendants with this with curly eucalyptus. Now, to contrast with that curly eucalyptus, we have again another band of bloodwood running across, cutting between the bottom and the top. So this one has kind of a similar muted brown palette. So you have the rich curly eucalyptus on the bottom, and then for the top, this is actually a bit of curly salvaged maple. So I had actually bought this board from an in-person showcase at a woodworker showcase last year. And I've been saving this wood for a while, and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to use it for. And when I started making the pendants, I was like, you know what? I really want to use this wood for pendants. So this is the first of the pendants that has this wood. I have a whole bunch more pendants coming out in future batches. So this is just a little bit of taste of this particular wood. Really nice, really unique maple that I think pairs nicely with the eucalyptus. Finally, we have the classic nice clean grain, warm aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So this ocarina is tuned to the key of F5. So here's a bit of a sound sample of what number 54 sounds like. So I think for this one, that really heavy, really dense eucalyptus plays nicely into a really bright, crisp tone. I think this one has a little bit more brightness. The other ones, like the mango, I feel is definitely warmer and more mellow. This eucalyptus is heavier, it's harder, and has a nice, beautiful crispness to it. So really, again, quite nice figured combination. Probably one of the most figured ones of the set, and just a beautifully bright tone to it. Next, we are moving on to number 55. So this one is actually much lighter than the prior one. So this ocarina consists of 4 woods. So the first wood of this ocarina is a really nice kind of almost salmon orange pink piece of madrone. So this wood was actually left over from one of my first ever custom alto inline ocarinas. That was a beautiful piece of madrone burl, madrone top, and a wenge stripe. So I had some of that madrone left over, and it was just a joy to work with. It's a lighter wood, it's a softer wood, so it really plays into the warmth of the tone. It just has this really, really beautiful, again, kind of salmon type color. So going around the top, I decided to continue that pairing of the wenge. So there's a nice black wenge band going around this. Again, for that custom one, I paired the wenge with the madrone. I felt that worked so well, especially since that ocarina had a lot of bark inclusion. So there's black bark inclusions in the body that paired nicely with the black wenge, and the wenge again just goes a very clean, crisp look, cuts across with that madrone. Finally, for the top, I have a piece of ambrosia maple. So this was actually left over from one of my recent custom base C4s. It was an absolutely stunning base C4 with a curly old growth redwood body and the ambrosia maple top. So you can see those lines of that ambrosia running down the body. Just a really cool, really unusual ocarina. Again, paired with the black and the orange or pinkish of the madrone. And then you have a nice aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So this is also kind of a little bit of a lighter one. This is a little bit softer wood. So this ambrosia maple is actually much softer than that reclaimed curly hard maple top. So this also plays into the softer madrone body and gives it a little bit of a warmer feel. So like the prior one, this is also tuned to the key of F5. So I'll go up and down the scale of number 55. So this has that really bright, crisp clarity of the F5. I would say again, this has a little bit more warmth to it, whereas the prior one had a little bit more crispness to it. Both sound absolutely beautiful. Just a slightly, very, very slightly different feel to the tone. Again, playing into that contrast between harder and denser woods and a little bit softer woods. Finally, last but not least, we have number 56 of this batch. So this is actually kind of a special one with the woods. So this consists of just two woods, both the bottom and the top. So this solid body is a beautiful piece of figured bubinga. So this wood is absolutely stunning. It's an utterly gorgeous wood. This wood was from my private stock. It was left over from a custom instrument that I built myself several years ago. And I've mentioned this before. This was a super custom Tsugaru shamisen. So the base of that body, or the base of that custom build, was centered around this really rich figured bubinga, and I had probably about 7 or 8 other woods in that build, but this was kind of one of the key theme woods of that build. I had a bunch of this left over, and I knew I had to make some ocarinas with it, and I have made several ocarinas. I made a number of alto A4s with several pieces of that leftover wood, and I had some small pieces remaining, so I decided to make a just really beautiful solid bubinga ocarina. And you notice I don't make many solid ocarinas, not because I don't like it. I really do like it, but it's actually, I've found that it's been easier for me to find woods of proper sizes that I need in different woods for the tops and the bottoms. It's a little bit hard to find certain woods, the right thickness for the top and the bottom, but I had the woods for this. I resawed it, and it just, I think, creates a really beautiful, just simple but elegant design. And then you have the aromatic cedar mouthpiece. So bubinga is really hard, really heavy, really dense, nice bright wood for crispness and clarity, just beautiful projection. And this is some really high grade bubinga. This is some very nice figured bubinga that I use for my personal build. So I personally like seeing this particular ocarina myself. So this ocarina is tuned to the key of F5. So I'm going to go up and down the scale again and do some improvisation on it. So this is what number 56 sounds like. So with the harder woods, this is going to be a little bit brighter, a little bit louder. This has a little bit more projection to it. Um, Really beautiful crisp tone, really nice chirpiness, especially if you get those trills in. So overall, all these ocarinas are an absolute joy to play. I don't think I have a favorite just because I love exploring all the different woods, all the different combinations. So if you like a little bit of a more mellow and warm tone, E5 where the softer woods will lend nicely for that preference. If you like a really bright, crisp tone, the F5 works well, especially when paired with the really hard, heavy, dense woods. So that kind of wraps up the overview of this first batch, going over all the different ocarinas. And moving forward, when I do all my batch releases, I'm going to be giving sound samples of every ocarina I make. I know it'd be much easier to just launch everything and let people select what they like based on looks, but I like to review every single instrument I make. I want to make sure all the information is out there so people know exactly what they're getting, and that you have a chance to hear what each instrument I make sounds like from myself as the maker. So you know not only, yes, these ocarinas all work, they're all function, they all sound beautifully, but you also get to hear a little bit of the subtle nuances between each of them in each batch. And it doesn't matter if I have a batch of 3 pendants or if I have a batch of a dozen pendants. I'm going to go through every single one and give an example of the tone of each. So finally, to wrap things up, I'm going to be doing a short demo piece on one of these ocarinas. I found that one of my favorite pieces to play when I actually tune and voice these is Banks and Brays Obani Doon. I played that a few times before on the larger ocarinas, but I think it actually plays really nicely with the higher pitched soprano ocarinas as well, and the scale actually lends itself kind of nicely for the cross fingering of these ocarinas. So please enjoy this rendition of Banks and Brays Obani Doon. So that wraps up this brand new, really exciting Ocarina Unveiling. This again is batch number 20 of ocarinas from Brady Musical Instruments, and the very first of my Pendant Ocarina offering. So this particular batch consists of 6 ocarinas, several in the key of E5, several in the key of F5. A really wide range of really beautiful woods. Every wood has a backstory behind it. And everything I try to salvage as much as I can. And now that I've worked this size out, I'll be able to use even more of the wood that I have on hand, and bang out a lot more really exquisite ocarinas out of a whole range of woods. I've got to say, throughout the entirety of this development, I've really come to enjoy the pendants. I've never given them much thought prior to this, and I've never really liked higher pitched ocarinas or higher pitched instruments in general, but the pendant ocarinas have been a lot of fun to play and learn, and it's been fun to explore them, and I'm really looking forward to developing more keys, more sizes, and exploring more woods. A nice thing about these ocarinas are that they're much smaller, they're portable, and they're much more accessible to everyone. I know that my inlines tend to be on the much more expensive side for ocarinas, but these pendants are made with the same exact wood selection, same exact finish, attention to detail, attention to voicing and clarity in the tone. So they will allow much more people of the ocarina community who might want to sample my ocarinas but not have necessarily the funds to get the full inlines, to have a chance to play and own some of the wooden ocarinas that I make. And again, these have an 18 note range, so they are very capable instruments. Just because they're smaller, just because they're pendants, I do not consider them any less of an instrument than the full range inlines. So I think they will open the doors to a lot of exciting developments, and hopefully give people in the ocarina community a new option in the ever expanding options of the world of pendants. So if you like these developments and you want to follow along more, you can check out the Brady Musical Instruments Instagram and Facebook pages. So I have updates, pictures, links, and new announcements for stuff in the works. The channel right here, I'm going to be unveiling a lot more batches. If you see one here that you would like but you didn't get a chance to get, don't worry, there's dozens more in the works. I got so many pendants now in the queue, in various stages of production and in various stages of planning. So lots of really exciting woods to come. And I will be making this a pretty standard, regular offering throughout the year. So there will definitely be a lot more pendants as I add this to my just standard batches as I move forward. And then finally, information will be available on the Brady Music website. So I will have information on all the keys and sizes. I'll have pictures of every build, as well as in-stock ocarinas on the shop. So with that, I want to thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.